for our English participants here. I'll speak in French for 5 minutes, and then after that, I'll leave the floor to Danny, okay? So, alors, nous allons commencer la réunion. Ça fait longtemps qu'on ne s'est pas vu. Le chapitre reprend graduellement ses activités. Comme vous avez vu, on a eu notre réunion à Trois-Rivières au mois d'août. On a cette réunion aussi aujourd'hui. Probablement qu'il va y en avoir une autre dans le courant du mois de décembre. On va essayer, sinon, ça sera au mois de janvier. Et puis ensuite, on va... OK, donc on va continuer à faire nos activités normales en 2024. Aujourd'hui, on a Danny Gallagher qui s'est offert gracieusement pour nous faire une petite présentation. Ça devrait être très, très, très belle. So, Danny, if you don't mind, I'll leave you the floor right now, okay? It's up to you. Okay, it doesn't understand. It.
Hello, Patrick.
Yep, you can go. Go, Danny.
Do you want me to go ahead?
Yep, please, go.
Okay, yeah. Look at, thank you very much, Patrick Carpentier, and all of the people on the Zoom call today. As you know, I'm the author of about 9 Expos books and working on another book to come out in February of 2024, coming out in a few months' time. And so in here, I don't know whether you can see this. This is my latest book. It's called Around the Horn. It came out in 2023. And I've got written other books as well in a recent period of time. 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. And then the next one will be the 5th one in a row in consecutive years. They're all memories from 1969 to 2004. Vignettes, small, short chapters on many players, special events that happened. Actually, going back to 2018, I've written, including the new one, 7 books in as many years, including Blue Monday in 2018. And in 2019, I wrote a book about the Canadian restaurant companies called Swiss Chalet and Harvey's. So that's what I've done in recent years, but I wrote a number of books prior to that. 2 of them co-authored with Bill Young, who I believe may still be a member of SABR-Québec. I'm not sure. I'm saying hello to Bill today, if he's there. But anyway, you know, you've been reading a lot in the last few years about the status or the possible status of Montreal as a big league baseball team. It's all up in the air. I don't pretend to be an expert, but I've written all of these books, so I'm a bit of an expert on, you know, what the situation might be. It looks pretty glum right now. You know, for 10 years, from 2012 to 2022, it was fairly good in terms of the enthusiasm and passion for getting a new team. You know, from 2004 to 2012, there was basically no talk of any baseball in Montreal. And then Warren Cromartie started beating the drums in 2012 with a reunion of the 81 Expos, and then another reunion of the 94 Expos in 2014. So that kind of really boosted enthusiasm in Montreal. And then for a number of years now, Expos Fest has held an annual autograph festival for fans from Montreal, Quebec, Ontario, and all parts of Canada, and even some parts of the United States, in New York, Plattsburgh, Burlington, Vermont, etc. Perry Giannis has done a great job in helping to keep the Expos legacy alive, and like myself. Now, all of this enthusiasm kind of went by the wayside in January of 2022 when Major League Baseball and its owners voted against any possibility of a split-season sister city concept with Tampa Bay. So here we are almost 2 years later, and the situation as far as Montreal having any interest in getting a new team is kind of like dormant. I can't honestly tell you what's going on behind the scenes. When Stephen Brockman was told that the sister city concept was no longer going to be a possibility, he ended his press conference by saying, "Is a full-time team viable?" And he said, "We'll see." And since then, I don't recall any time where he's actually made a statement about whether he's interested in pursuing a Major League baseball team, whether it's expansion or relocation of a team. Stephen Brockman is very private compared to Charles Brockman, his father. I actually emailed Charles Brockman a few times each year, and he responds all the time. But Stephen is a different kind of a person because he's just very, very private. But, it's hard to tell whether he might get involved. Pierre Carl Pelado, who's involved in the telecom industry in Quebec, and he owns the Alouettes and TVA, he might be a kind of an ideal guy to do it, like Rogers is in Toronto with the Blue Jays. Now, the Alouettes are just small turkey compared to a Major League Baseball franchise. To get a Major League Baseball franchise is very, very expensive. It's a Herculean task to pay for an expansion franchise, and I guess to put together a bid to apply for a franchise, and then you got to get a stadium built, and they want a stadium built downtown downtown Montreal. So it's a lot of things, a lot of expenses. You got to get a scouting department going, you got a front office going, and that's before the first pitch is even thrown. It's a lot of things to think about. Many fans like to pray and hope that a franchise will come, but you have to really think realistically, will it ever work? Will it work? Is Montreal rich enough? Is Quebec rich enough to support a Major League Baseball team for 81 home games? It's a small market. Montreal is still a small market like it was from 1969 to 2004. The Blue Jays are a big market, much bigger population in Montreal and in Quebec, much smaller. Now, Salt Lake City, Portland, and Nashville already have official groups together to showing their interest in getting a Major League franchise. Montreal does not have such a group at this point. Now, neither does Charlotte, which has been mentioned in the past. Charlotte, North Carolina, they actually were one of the runners-up before Washington got the Expos in 2004. And I remember Claude Bouchou in the 90s saying that there was talk of him, moving the team to Charlotte, North Carolina, because they had a great situation in Charlotte. There are other teams I would think would maybe come along if Rob Manfred puts out the call for expansion bids. You're talking, I guess, 1.2, 1.5 billion for a franchise. And then I don't know how much it is to help build a stadium, and hopefully the city of Montreal and the province of Quebec and the country of Canada will participate in helping to build a stadium downtown. So I don't know what the situation is going to happen. I think that in 2024, Rob Manfred is going to call for bids. That's just my thinking, just my hunch. Because he's put this expansion thing on the hold for way, way too long. He's wanted Tampa Bay and Oakland to be settled. Oakland is going now to Vegas at some point in the next few years. They'll play next year in Oakland. After that, they don't really know where they're going to play before they start playing in Vegas. And then Tampa Bay has kind of firmed up plans to actually stay in Tampa Bay. Rob Manfred, apparently happy with the way Tampa Bay is going about getting a new ballpark. So I want to hope at some point, I'm hoping that when the commissioner calls for bids, that finally this thing will come to a head in Montreal, and we'll find out if somebody is rich enough to be the majority investor and bring along some minority investors and see if they will apply for a franchise. And if they don't, well, that's it for any chance of any baseball in Montreal. So that's kind of what my take on the situation in Montreal. It's I would say it's tenuous at the moment. It's dormant, but you never know who might come out of the woodwork and make an application for a franchise. So I guess I'm open for questions or comments about this situation.
Danny, the three cities that you mentioned, Salt Lake City, Portland, and Nashville, are all quite a bit smaller than Montreal, actually. So they would be a very small market as well.
Yeah, it's true. It's just that they have I think they've got more support from the municipal government and the states and where they're located to make it happen. Nashville has been up and running. That committee has been up and going a long time. No, Nashville people told me, this is several years ago, that their guessing is that they want to be on the field playing their first regular season game in 2027. So they're probably not far off. See, if Manfred calls for bids in 2024 or 2025, he'll give them maybe, 6 months to put together an application, and then each city would have to get their act together, and at some point the owners would decide which one or two franchises are going to be awarded, and then they would have about 2 years to get things ready, their stadium ready. Salt Lake City and Portland, I agree that they're probably not much bigger than Montreal, probably smaller. But the fact that they probably got a fair amount of support already puts them ahead of Montreal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I think the main argument for Montreal is that it's the biggest untapped market in North America right now, excluding Mexico, which is another possibility.
What's that question again?
I think the biggest, best argument in favor of Montreal is that it's the biggest untapped market in North America, excluding Mexico, which I think is another possibility if MLB wants to be bold.
Yeah, I think that Montreal has had a team before, so it'd be interesting to see what the major league owners want to decide to do. And you have to think that most of let's say there's 30 teams, 28 of those teams 29 of these owners or the reps of those teams are based in the United States. Do they want to venture into Canada again, or do they want to stay with teams in the United States? I think that's something that's going to be on the desk of all of the major league owners. There's other situation too. How do you guys feel about Montreal possibly getting a team, considering the language problems in Quebec and Montreal? Is that a detriment to Montreal getting a franchise? The provincial government trying to make it difficult for people to live in Montreal or Quebec with some of their laws, especially the language laws. I don't know.
You hear me?
Yes, we do, Alain.
Okay. There's one thing I don't know. I don't think, in fact, that French is a detriment. Quite the contrary. If Rob Manfred want to internationalize the game, okay, they wanted to go to Paris. Was announced last week that it's not viable financially, so they postponed, or well, they hoped it was a postponement, not a cancellation altogether. But they want to internationalize the game. That's the thing in favor of Montreal. They want it in several languages. French is one of them. So I quite the contrary. I believe it's an asset to Montreal. Another thing is, about 5-6 years ago, they were talking about expansion. COVID came, and well, nothing happened for 2-3 years. And if you recall, there were some, I would say, some really good informants with Major League Baseball. I'll name them: Bob Nightingale and Tracy Rigolsby, who published some kind of a map with 32 teams, and both of them had Montreal included in that map. Maybe some recall seeing that. So it's clear to me that there is an interest from the commissioner's office to have a team in Montreal. How will that happen? Well, if ever it happens, I don't know. What I know, though, is that the broadcast landscape is changing. Who knows? Maybe, one of the GAFA will put together some money to buy a team. They have money without knowing what to do with them. We just don't know where the broadcast business is going. Look what happened with Bally. So right now, entertainment and broadcast are both linked in some ways. In fact, the reason why the sports rights are so high is because that's the last thing that people want to see live. So there might be incentives to some people, maybe outside the US, to have their own team. Well, will Montreal be part of it? I just don't know. What I know, and I'm sure of it, if there's anybody slightly interested in having a team in Montreal, I strongly believe that Montreal will be highly considered.
Yes, Montreal, on all of these stories or polls from the States, like you mentioned, Bob Nightingale, that Montreal is up there simply because it had a major league team before and it has prospects to be a potential franchise. Now, Jeremy Filoso, the French language reporter from one of the radio stations in Montreal, reported, this is a month or two ago, you probably heard about it, that he was advised by an anonymous source at Major League Baseball that Major League Baseball and the owners are receptive to having another team in Montreal. I agree with you, the point about the broadcasting landscape has changed. Any new team is going to get a pot of money from the overall broadcasting pot involving all of the teams, so that the local team like Montreal would have a better chance of getting some money together to pay for all the expenses, as opposed to just getting local sponsors and so on. They can draw from that pot of money to help run the franchise. So it certainly has changed, I think, since the team was here in 2004. I think that, Pelado, if you could get Pierre Pelado, he's laid off a lot of people at TVA recently, and but he has a fair amount of money, and as I said before, it's like Rogers in Toronto with the Blue Jays. I think it's important, I think, to have a telecom company operating the team, and then he could have minority investors come in to help him out. But it's going to take a lot of money to run a franchise.
Yep.
Sorry, if I may, some comments on this about the political landscape. We've had a bit of a controversy in Quebec this week because the provincial government promised some money, like $5 million for 2 preseason NHL games in Quebec City, and that is not going well. It's not popular at all. So I don't think there's any appetite for public funds put into a stadium right now. I mean, I think that has been tried for an NHL quality arena in Quebec City. There's still no team. So I think this is seen as a failure. So as long as Quebec City does not get the Nordiques back, I think the Expos are next in line, and they're impossible to get public money as long as this is not resolved. And Pelado is involved in the Quebec Nordiques, so his priority is the Nordiques. So unfortunately, I don't think that's in the cards soon. I think we have to wait for that to come. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the NHL is even interested at all in Quebec City as a potential market for the expansion.
Even the Valerie Plante of Montreal is kind of cool to the situation about any baseball in Montreal and participating in construction of the stadium. But didn't at one time, or maybe they still have, Quebec government have a minister who actually was involved with the Expos portfolio? Is that still in existence or no? Didn't they have a minister that I mean, I'm talking like a year or two ago, but that's interesting. The situation you mentioned about the Nordiques and the Coliseum in Quebec City, that here they built the stadium many years ago, and they still don't have an NHL franchise.
Yeah, so I think we're kind of stuck, and I think the things are going to have to change politically for this to be interesting. I mean, Danny Gallagher, as the mayor of Montreal, was definitely interested in pushing for that project. He lost, so I think that's another. I mean, we can discuss if this is good or bad for Montreal, but definitely for the Expos project, it's a bad thing. So we might have lost a bit of the momentum in that thing. We haven't heard about Mitch Garber in a long time. I mean, that was one guy that had money and was interested in baseball. So I'm not sure if he has all of this. And maybe one other thing I wanted to mention about Pelado and the sports channel. I mean, TVA Sports is losing tons and tons and tons of money. So this is not good. I mean, I think they spend way too much money to have the rights for the NHL, kind of thinking that they would get the Nordiques back and they would be able to make money from that. But I mean, it's not looking good. I'm not sure what's the long-term plan there, but it's they're losing money every year with that channel.
I see. Mitch Garber told me, this is in 2022, I wrote that he said that 162 game schedule involved in any potential team in Montreal is too much. The fact that 81 home games, he alluded to the fact that it's just too many home games for the fan to be, supporting. In other words, he was saying they were not interested. Well, he's not really speaking for Stephen Bronfman, but he said that the full-time team is really not something he himself was in favor of. So, they say the NBA with a 40-game schedule, a home game, 40-game home schedule, may be more suited for Montreal in the Bell Center. But the Expos, or whatever the name of the team, it's going to be quite a challenge. And I think that the major league owners have to looking at all of those things. Maybe they probably know about that situation with the NHL and the Coliseum in Quebec City. So I remember a few years ago, Boston Bruins owner Jeremy Jacobs, he spoke out against the Quebec City situation about them getting a team. He said something to the effect that don't count on it too much. But see, in baseball, Rob Manfred, I tried to get some people to talk to me, owners, about the situation in Montreal, but they're kind of been told not to say anything. I'm just kind of guessing that, but some of them just don't want to talk about it until it actually comes to a vote. So. They from 2002 to 2004, when Major League Baseball did own the Expos, they could not find anybody in Montreal or Quebec to buy the team and keep it there, and buy it from Major League Baseball and keep it there. And I'm not blaming Stephen Bronfman, but he was on, again, part of the board of directors at that point, and I guess he decided at that point he was not interested. But things are a little bit different now with Stephen. You never know, he might come out of the woodwork and do something, but it's a Herculean task.
I don't think that MLB had any interest in finding a local owner in 2002. They had their mind made up to move the team to Washington, and there were no efforts to make it, how would you say, enticing to interests in Montreal to manifest themselves. And the way the other owners, not who were with Loria, were treated is a sign of that. They were basically skinned out of their money.
Yeah, but just on that, partly right. The team was offered to Stephen Bronfman, just declined for family reasons. So, yeah.
But I mean, in the early 2000s, the Expos brand was not good, right? I mean, there was zero media coverage. Nobody wanted to go to the stadium. Nobody trusted that franchise. It would have been very, very difficult. I mean, it would have been much cheaper to try to save that team than to get an expansion team. But the brand was so tarnished at that point that it was also, it would have been very, very difficult to turn things around, right?
Absolutely, and they would have had to start from scratch, basically.
Yeah, it's.
We have a question in the chat now. Ryan, would you open your mic and ask your question yourself, please?
I think that as I said before, Pelado and whatever companies he's operated, could bring in, I don't know, TSN or RDS as a potential, partner. I think there's a fair amount of possibilities. I think the key right now is actually coming forth and showing an interest, perhaps, in being a majority investor, and so far, that hasn't happened. I even wrote a letter to, this is a couple of years ago, to the owner of the Buffalo Bills, because they're not that far from Toronto or Canada, to see if he was interested in getting involved. And I never heard from him. And Jacksonville Jaguars owner, Sadiq Khan, he owns the Four Seasons franchise at the hotel in Toronto. So, but I never heard from him. You know, I was trying to I'm still trying to drum up interest among anybody who might be interested in getting involved, but so far, nobody is interested. I think that everybody's just going to wait until Rob Manfred puts out a call for bids to see if anybody comes forward.
Well, leagues don't want whispers to be spread about, so no matter the league, MLB, NHL, NFL, so.
Yeah, it's the owners, the Major League Baseball owners just may decide that they just want to keep the franchises in the U.S. and leave Toronto. It's the only Canadian team, but I don't have any inside knowledge of how what they're thinking. But
Gary has a question on the chat. Well, I'm working for RDS, and I had a conversation with many of you guys. TSN probably has the most incentive to having a team, especially with Sportsnet having the Blue Jays. So yes, we don't know if Bell is interested, but it's probably the company in Canada that would have the most incentive to have a team in Montreal. Because from what I've been told, the ratings during the summer, Sportsnet is just crushing RDS because of the Blue Jays, whether or not they're good.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about, can Montreal support a team? You know, Pittsburgh comes in on a Monday night and there's only 8,000 or 10,000 people there. That's not the type of crowd that the owners want to see. But can they consistently support this team when you study from scratch as an expansion team? When the team is probably not going to be very good for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Are the fans going to support it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure somebody like Stephen Brockman is thinking along those lines, and Mitch Garber. Yeah. That 81 home games is just too much for the fan to absorb in terms of costs and parking and whatever else.
If the product is good, customers will be there. Plain and simple. Christian stated it plainly. The Expos brand was dead, from the moment Lauria took over. So, Lauria ran into an impossible. I don't want to defend him, but the Expos brand was pretty much very tarnished at the moment he took over. So, but if you respect the customers, the chance that they will be there for a good product are good. The thing is in Montreal, don't underestimate it. You have a lot to do in the summer in Montreal. Unlike many cities, in downtown Cleveland, downtown Cincinnati, there's not much to do. Montreal, it's completely different, from many cities. Montreal, the entertainment, offer is a lot bigger than lots of cities of that same size.
I think
that's what I've been hearing, that soccer is fairly big in Montreal, and baseball, minor baseball is not maybe as popular as it was.
Yeah, well, it can't be popular because there's no team. But one thing that has changed in great fashion since 2002 is that baseball has become, there's a lot of destination travel linked to baseball, and that's a lot behind the thought of moving the A's to Las Vegas. It's not that Las Vegas is that big a place, but lots of people travel to Vegas all the time to watch a game. And Montreal could be a destination city where a lot of fans would come to Montreal to catch a game.
How do you think the situation in Oakland differs from the one in Montreal? Oakland's about to lose its team, so how similar is Oakland to Montreal?
Well, it's similar in that they're losing the team because they couldn't get a decent stadium.
Yeah, but what I mean is, does Oakland have more hope of getting a new team, or does Montreal have more hope of getting another team? I mean, I would say Oakland before Montreal.
Well, Oakland tried about 6 different plans to build a new ballpark somewhere in the downtown, and they all failed, and they were all voted down for one reason or another. So they're basically where Montreal was 20 years ago. And nobody's coming to the games anymore. If there was a second team in the Bay Area, it should be in San Jose, not in Oakland, because that's where the money is.
Well, nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded.
Yeah, Stephen Bachman's group, that they worked hours and hours and hours on the split city concept, which didn't make any sense at all. But they really put the hope that Major League Baseball would accept that idea. And when it was snowballed or stopped, they just pretty much just lost enthusiasm for having any team in Montreal.
The other thing I'd like to point out is over the last 20 years, there's been a big change in the importance of ticket revenue. It used to be you had to draw big crowds to turn a profit, but correct me if I'm wrong, a lot, if not all teams, are profitable before they sell a single ticket. And you look at a team like the Marlins that is right near the bottom or at the bottom every year in attendance, and are they not profitable with an average of 14,000 fans per year? Because today there's a lot more revenue sharing than there was when we lost the Expos, a lot more. And I just don't think ticket revenue is as important as it used to be.
You're right, Gary, about that.
Yeah, that's right. The ticket sales are sort of like a secondary source of income for major league teams, and you're right that the revenue sharing brings in a lot of money. I guess they get a chunk of the broadcasting, national broadcasting revenue. So there's certainly a fair amount of revenue to help out a major league team. Yeah, it's I'm sure that Stephen Bopp and whoever might be interested in putting a bid in are aware of those things. There's a lot of things that they have to look at. Will Montreal support a team over the course of 81 game schedule? Is 81 games too much? Or a lot of things that a group would have to consider. I'm sure right now some of these people who wanna perhaps put in a bid are working behind the scenes to look at all of these factors before they would even consider putting a bid in. As I say, I don't know. Don't know what exactly is going on behind the scenes, but before this bid is even made, I'm sure that they have to look at all of this stuff and to see if it's worthwhile to put a bid in. And if you put a bid in, there's no guarantee that you're going to get a team. But I think Montreal should at least try to put a bid in. You know what I mean? It's they put a bid in, and then the expansion committee comes to Montreal and talks to these guys to see what they're made of, what the committee is made of, what these people are made of, before they make a decision. So it's I would hope that Montreal, somebody would put a bid in, but whether they do, I don't know.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, my understanding is that once you're part of the club, right now, this is basically a license to print money, right? No teams loses money. The problem is getting into that club, right? And you have to convince the other owners that you're bringing something and adding to that pool of money that they're going to split among themselves. So this is where Montreal has it's a bit tougher. And I guess bringing in a publicly funded stadium is going to be part of that contribution. And again, I'm not sure that's going to be feasible anytime soon. Apart from that, you need to convince the others that you're going to be able to draw at least a decent amount of fans, and that's maybe where the this international flavor is going to be bringing something to the table that Montreal would have over some other teams like Salt Lake City, for example. But it's kind of thin. But this is why I'm a bit confused why the potential owners are worried about like 81 games. Is that too much? I think even if the stadium was mostly empty, they would still make money. It would look bad, but the problem is that you need to convince the other owners that you do better than that and bring money to the table.
Yeah, like 2002, 2004, there were a lot of nights when there was 4,000 or 5,000 people. When Lloyd had the team, crowds were so. I think they were better in the 1990s under the Claude Bouchou consortium, but even then there was times when the crowds weren't that great. Like even in 1993, 1994, even when they had those two great teams, they were Claude Bouchou told me many times that they were hurting for money, and they were just hanging on by a shoestring financially.
Yeah, but one, Brochu did not have any money himself, and two, the economic situation was completely different. They hardly made any money out of broadcasting.
Yeah, the situation has changed now. There's revenue sharing, there's broadcasting revenue. Yeah, you're right. Claude Bouchou didn't have any money himself, and the consortium shareholders didn't have any money. They didn't want to throw in any money other than the initial $5 million or $7 million. But the climate has changed now. It's more pluses now than when Bouchou and Lawyer had a team. It's a question of whether somebody with deep pockets wants to get involved.
Yeah, to get back to your earlier point about what's in it for the other owners, I think that's where Montreal has an advantage because what Salt Lake City and Portland are not big media markets, much smaller than Montreal. There's no untapped potential there. There is some in Montreal. That's what the other owners are looking at, and that's why I keep thinking that if they want to be bold, they're going to go to Mexico City, because if you want to open up a whole new market that's potentially very lucrative, that's where you want to go, because Montreal already has some baseball.
Yeah. Do you think, guys, that Montreal, can support to major professional teams with the Canadians and the Expos or whatever they're called? I think that be interesting to see how that will work out.
They did before the Expos brand got tarnished. They were, Montreal was in the middle of the pack in terms of attendance. It was only in the last few years that it was really a problem.
Anyway, money is coming from outside, so mostly.
So, do we have more questions for Danny?
I was going to say, guys, if you are interested in any of my books, you can let Patrick know, and I can, send you an autographed copy for $28, including shipping.
Thanks. You did you were the one who finished Norm King's book, weren't you?
What's that?
You were the one who completed Norm King's last book on the Expos. Is that correct?
I just said, sorry, I didn't quite.
Norm King's last book on the Expos. You were the one who completed it.
Yeah, I thank you for bringing it up. My hearing is not that good. But yeah, his book 1979, he had worked on it, I think about 2012. He began starting to work on that book about the 79 season. And he had done most of it, and then unfortunately he died of cancer in
2018.
Yeah, a few years ago, and that manuscript lay dormant. He had given it to some of his SABR friends in the United States, and they worked on it for quite a while. And there was so much work that they decided they would not be able to complete it. So I found out that the manuscript was still there. So I asked Norm King's widow, Lucille McGregor, if I could take it and complete it. So that's what I did. Myself and Don Rice, a reporter at the Saskatoon Star Phoenix, who's a crazy Expos fan, we worked on it and we fixed it up and got it ready. Excuse me, and we published it and brought it out in October 2021. So we were really happy. I was happy that I was able to take that manuscript and bring it to fruition instead of it just lying there and not have anything done, because Norm had done so much work on it. I just wanted to complete it.
Yeah, well, as you know, Norm was a member of our group, quite an active member, and he had made a presentation a few months before he passed on where it was, and what he was working on that book. So I'm really glad that you were able to complete it and to bring it to light.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Tata. That's one of my proud of that project. Really happy.
Alain, est-ce que tu pourrais demander à Danny, s'il vous plaît, qu'il nous parle de son prochain livre? Parce qu'il m'entend très mal.
Okay, Danny, you can hear me, right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, Patrick has some sound trouble. He would like you to talk a little about your upcoming book.
That's right. I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to talk about that, and I kind of forgot about it. But okay, the next book is coming out in February of 2024. It's coming out in a few months. It's going to be an anniversary type book. I'm calling it a special commemorative edition, because it deals a lot with the situation in 2024, the team leaving town, contraction in 2001, the situation from 2002 to 2004. I talked to some of the guys who were on the relocation committee that put the team in Washington. So they gave me a bunch of stuff that maybe had not been published before. And 1994 is the 30th anniversary of the 2004. 2024 is the 30th anniversary of the team in 1994. So I'm spending a lot of time in the book on the 94 Expos. So 2004 is the 20th anniversary of what happened, the bad news in 2004. So, and then 1969, that's another anniversary kind of a thing. So in 2024, it's the 55th anniversary of the team starting in 1969. So it's going to be quite a book. I'm going to be, this will be my 10th book, and it's an anniversary book. So I'm looking forward to it coming out, and it'll be something, another book for Expos readers to enjoy.
Fantastic. Any more questions for Danny or any comments?
That's great. I've got Andre Dawson has already written the foreword for the book, so I'm really happy to have him be on the front cover. Foreword by Andre Dawson gives it some publicity, and sometime before December the 1st, Andre Dawson will be sending that forward to me. See, I'm still kind of, trying to figure out what the title of the book will be. But you got the main title, but I'll have to decide on that pretty soon.
Do you have an idea what it will be? The title, I mean? Oh. Il m'entend pas du tout, hein?
Look at, gentlemen, thanks so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Danny. It was a pleasure meeting you, finally.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Yeah, I've read you a number of times, and I'm glad to see you in the flesh.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you, Danny.
Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres personnes qui ont des commentaires à faire ou des observations ou des choses à nous dire le temps qu'on est encore sur le Zoom de SABR? Alain, tu as des mises à jour à nous faire peut-être?
Pas vraiment, là. Sinon qu'on a bien hâte de faire la série mondiale l'année prochaine, d'être de retour.
Ben oui, ça faisait des années que vous les faisiez. Il y a une nouvelle entente avec TVA Sport?
Depuis l'année passée, on alterne.
Ah.
Ça fait que on alterne et on y sera de retour l'année prochaine. Même chose pour le match des étoiles.
OK.
Christian, est-ce que tu peux nous parler de la dernière édition de la revue du baseball canadien?
Oui, merci. J'allais justement vous en parler. Donc, on a lancé le mois passé, il y a quelques semaines là, pour la rencontre du Canadian Baseball History Network, la deuxième édition de la revue de baseball canadien. Il y a 5 articles dans cette deuxième édition, dont un en français, celui de Patrick.
Excusez.
Oui, sur... oui.
Excusez-moi, c'est moi.
OK. Donc l'article de Patrick sur la présence de Taylor Smith à Saint-Jean, le joueur noir en 1899-1900. Et on va réouvrir bientôt les soumissions pour la 3e édition. Donc, on est toujours à la recherche de textes en français. Donc, ça va probablement être dû, là, je dirais, en avril peut-être, on va avoir besoin d'un manuscrit complet. Et ensuite, là, le processus de révision et tout ça, là, ça nous amène ensuite jusqu'à novembre prochain pour la 3e édition. Voilà.
Question, Christian, vous cherchez quoi comme texte?
Ben, c'est des textes de baseball qui vont parler du baseball au Canada. Donc, ça peut être c'est surtout des soumissions au niveau de l'histoire qu'on a, mais ça peut être aussi impact sociologique, économique. Ce qui nous importe, c'est que ça parle de baseball au Canada. Donc, c'est ce qu'on recherche.
OK. C'est très, très large.
Oui, puis ça peut être seulement le texte de Patrick cette année est essentiellement centré sur une photo. On a une section qu'on appelle des archives où ça peut être qu'on réinterprète un document qu'on a trouvé, une photo, et qu'on donne un peu de contexte là-dessus. Donc, ça n'a pas besoin d'être super compliqué niveau universitaire d'une thèse de quelque chose. Ça peut être vraiment un texte relativement simple à ce niveau-là.
OK.
Et d'ailleurs, je vais vous en parler de ce texte-là dans une prochaine rencontre de SABR-Québec. Il y a Christian et puis moi, on a rédigé le texte l'année passée sur Léo d'Endurant. On a manqué de temps cette année pour vous présenter ça, mais probablement qu'en 2024, on devrait être capable de vous le faire. Donc, c'est ça. Donc, comme je vous disais, comme Christian a dit, là, c'est pas des textes, en tout cas le mien, en tout cas, là, il m'a demandé de le faire là, à la dernière minute. Là, ça m'a pris une semaine pour le rédiger. Là, fait que c'est pas réellement pas des choses très, très recherchées, malgré que c'est bien certain que si c'est plus recherché, mais tant mieux. J'imagine que Christian, plus qu'il y a de détails et plus que plus que le texte est costaud, plus ça fait son affaire, n'est-ce pas?
Oui, et c'était pas du tout une attaque contre ton texte, Patrick, qui est de très bon calibre. C'est ce que je
Non,
voulais
mais
juste je voulais encourager seulement les gens à dire que c'est pas besoin
non, c'est ça.
pas besoin d'être prof d'université pour soumettre
Ouais.
à la revue. Là.
C'est pour ça que je l'ai dit aussi, je l'ai rédigé en moins d'une semaine, là, quand tu me l'as demandé à la dernière minute. Donc, c'est pour vous dire que c'est pas nécessairement des choses qu'on peut passer des recherches faire 4 ans, là, réellement. Là, ce qui vous passe par la tête, ce que vous connaissez, vous êtes capable de rédiger, envoyez ça à Christian.
Je dirais peut-être juste pour préciser que idéalement, ce qu'on recherche, c'est quelque chose qui est assez semblable aux publications de SABR, mais qui peut être fait complètement en français. Je sais qu'il y a certains de nos membres qui écrire en anglais, c'est peut-être plus difficile, donc il y a une opportunité là d'écrire en français. Puis, ben, sinon aussi, il y en a, comme j'ai mentionné, il y a des choses peut-être un niveau un peu moindre où c'est centré sur une photo, ça peut être un très court texte là, qui serait peut-être plus difficile à publier dans une revue de SABR.
Est-ce qu'il y a des personnes qui ont d'autres choses à dire? C'est le temps de vous exprimer. Non? Donc, est-ce qu'on désire clore la réunion aujourd'hui? Well, I know that Danny doesn't understand me real well because of my mic, but I'd like to thank him to be here with us today. Because I think his presentation was very interesting. And as we saw from all the discussion between all the members, I think that was a topic that was very interesting for everybody. So thank you, Danny, even if you don't understand me.
OK, merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
Thanks.
OK.
Merci à tout le monde. Grosse réunion aujourd'hui, beaucoup de participants, 14, many participants, 14 people. So thank you, everybody. See you next
Salut,
time.
guys.
Salut.
Merci.